All right, welcome everyone. I'm very, very happy that we are going to be pre-recording a short dialogue with Jim Jatras, a good friend of both Ed Lozansky and myself, who has been a longtime, very, very adroit geopolitical analyst, somebody who has been a U.S. diplomat, somebody also who has worked on the Senate Republican Policy Committee as an advisor, and who has a great deal of experience navigating the realm of geopolitics with a deep understanding of historical forces and human nature, which is such high value. And recently, Ed and I watched an assessment of the world situation in the new Trump 2.0 administration, the pros and the cons in a discussion with Rachel Blevins. It was a fantastic discussion, and we just had to have Jim contribute into our peace roundtable forum. So, Jim, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for clarifying a few ambiguities that we're going to be jumping into today. The first question.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
Matt. Thank
go
you and
ahead.
Ed for having me on. I just want to say I can't think of two better people to have a little discussion with at this very uncertain time as the world seems to be shifting under our feet.
Well, you could say that again, Ed. I think that you had a thought or a question that you wanted to begin with. Do you want to start?
Well, everyone's using the word unpredictable with Trump, and this is correct because I was really, my hopes were dramatically improved, increased after his interview on January 7th, when he was still president-elect in Mar-a-Lago, where he basically agreed that this war started because of NATO expansion. This was, I didn't expect that. So for me, it was really, I said, now we have our guy in the White House, finally, because he understands the roots of this crisis. Didn't take too much time to change the tune after he dropped elect and became real president, moved in the White House, and then things, it's this expression, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Because he almost repeated stories and blaming, of course, and threatening Russia and with sanctions. And most importantly, the people that he selected in his team, they're few. First of all, of course, Tulsi Gabbard and Robert Kennedy, who exactly said what just mentioned, what he mentioned on January 7th, but not the rest of the team. So we are now for some strange times. On one hand, we knew that we don't have anyone else by Trump, even with all his problems. Then so we have to deal with someone we have. But do you expect? Do you have it? Is any hope still remains, or this is all over again?
Um, the Things are clear as mud right now. I mean, you do hear some statements out of Trump that seem to be encouraging, and then he spouts off all sorts of nonsensical numbers like a million Russian dead and 60 million deaths during World War II. And you wonder, where does he get his facts from? And you hope if somebody like Tulsi Gabbard gets in, the president will be briefed a little more on what the true state of affairs is. But I think underlying this is that we really don't know what fundamental direction he wants. And we know he wants to make America great again. He wants to annex Greenland and Canada and everything else in the Western Hemisphere. But we don't really know at this point whether he wants to take America away from the unipolar moment that began in 1991, where we think we had this mission from history to dominate the entire globe and be willing to say to other powers, whether it's the Russians or the Iranians or the Chinese, oh, that bit of land over there, it's none of our business. We don't care what goes on over there. That's in your sphere. It's not in ours. I mean, and I think some people have been very quick to jump on that and say, oh, well, he's throwing his weight around the Western Hemisphere. I guess he's going to go into a multipolar mode. I hope that's what it means. But there's a difference between saying he's doubling down on America American dominance in our region and saying he's willing to concede other regions to other powers. And that's what we don't know yet. And until, I think it's going to take a little bit of time. For example, we've got these mixed reports. Has he cut off weapons to Ukraine or not? I mean, the reports are mixed. Has he cut off the money to Ukraine? The reports are mixed. So and it seems too, he's still the mentality that this is primarily a war between Ukraine and Russia. So he can get in there and knock some heads together and get these boys who are to stop fighting and come to the table because he's the teacher. He doesn't seem to fully understand this is not a war between Ukraine and Russia. This is a war between Russia and the collective West, between really the United States and NATO on the one side, using Ukraine as a proxy. So hopefully he'll start to, wake up and smell the kvass and figure out what's going on here. And maybe he really knows, and this is part of it, just the way he sets the stage and, art of the deal and all that kind of nonsense. But we really don't know at this point.
Yeah. No, I think that ambiguity is important. And, we do have his first term to go on as far as a gauge to a certain degree. And we do know that there were things that he would often say which would be inflammatory, but then he would go and do something eminently rational. Mm-hmm. Like meet with Kim Jong-un and try to broker a deal mm-hmm. with the South and North Korea or a variety of points that there's a long list of examples. But then again, as you've pointed out, to what degree is he appreciative of the nuances and why is he seemingly saying on the one hand that he's learned from his lessons of allowing in the Mike Pompeos, the Boltons, these mm-hmm. war hawk neocons in the first term that he wouldn't do again. And then he goes and does it all again. And there's all of these creatures like Mark Rubio and Pete Hegseth who are Gorka, Sebastian, my God. Yeah. British intel connected, strange figure. So we don't really fully know exactly to what degree this is wise street smart maneuvering a la Lincoln of keep your enemies close, or is he really duped? Does he have these blind spots that could be used to create destruction? It's very jarring, eh?
Yeah, it is. And the thing is, as far as, for example, when he says something like this would not have happened, he was president. Again, he puts that into the mindset of Biden weak, me strong. Putin would never have dared to do this if I was president. And he admits, as Ed said, that NATO expansion was the cause of it. But it's more to it than that. This war, the hot phase of this war in February 2022, really picked up only about a year after Biden took office. It wasn't under Biden that Ukraine was built up into a major military power, a NATO state in all but name. That happened under Trump. I mean, he had Kurt Volker, the guy from Raytheon, as his Ukraine envoy, who just happened to think that, well, what they need is lots of Javelin missiles, which just happened to be made by which company? Oh, yeah, Raytheon. So It was as under Trump that they built up Ukraine into this force that was prepared to conduct what they call, like kind of their version of Operation Storm, like the Croatians did with the American aid in 1995 in Crimea. I don't even know if Trump knows that happened under his watch during his first administration, that the stage was set for this war. And of course, it just then kicked into force when when Biden was in office. So I don't know how much of it is muddled thinking on his part. He seems to have this conflict within his own thinking about which way he wants to go. And then you wonder how much does he actually know about what goes on in our government and what these people are up to.
Mm-hmm. On that note, he did mention something about he doesn't believe that America should even be in NATO. About 4 days ago, he made some statement that that we should be spending anything in NATO, and that. But at the same measure, he's also encouraging all of the member states to spend upwards of 5% of their GDP. Do you think that there's anything behind this? Could NATO actually be threatened as an institution by this type of maneuver? Or do you think that this is just sort of words put out there in a discombobulated fashion?
It's one of the ironies here, because various people have pointed out that he could find various ways to start to withdraw the United States from Europe and get out of these commitments, force the Europeans to spend more. Although why that's necessary, I don't know. What threat exactly do they need to spend 5% on in order for us to justify leaving? And one of the ironies is one of the president's strongest powers, in which he has almost plenary authority, is to withdraw us from treaties. If he wanted to get us out of the North Atlantic Treaty, he could more or less do that with a stroke of his pen. It would still take a year for it to take effect. But if he did that, there's almost nothing the pro-NATO types could do about it. They can't force the president to make a treaty, and they can't stop him from withdrawing from a treaty. So if he wanted to do that, he could do that. So maybe he feels politically it's necessary to take this roundabout move to do it. But I think that's the crux of the problem there, question there, Matt. Does he intend to have a multilateral world and America to pull back from these far-flung commitments where we must exercise hegemony in Europe? We must exercise hegemony in the Middle East. We must have hegemony on the Western Pacific Rim. Or does he understand that our sphere of influence is here in the Western Hemisphere, and to concentrate on defending that? I don't even know if he thinks in those terms.
Ed, do you have a
Yeah.
thought?
Well, during his first term, we gave him a lot of excuses because we thought that he has to prove that he is not Russian agent.
Mm-hmm.
This is so he was doing all those bad things, and we more or less forgave him because we understood that all those impeachment, threats of impeachment, Russian agents, all those things, but also because some of the people in his administration were doing some bad things without even telling him. We know that there's a recent article surprising article in New York Times saying that how CIA built all those bases in Ukraine, and this happened under Trump's watch also. So, but now no more excuses. This is the thing that, by the way, we are speaking today on the eve of tomorrow's decision by Billiton American scientists about doomsday scenario. And now today is 90 seconds. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. It will be interesting to get your prediction. But also my question is, I keep my latest few articles are called homework for Keith Kellogg, because Keith Kellogg apparently he's a front man. He's doing this and he's preparing this summit. Eventually it has to sound, the sooner the better. And Kellogg needs some homework. So what would you recommend besides our articles? Maybe you have some idea of what he should read before to get his brains in a proper state and deliver to his message on the eve of the summit some logical thing how to end this war, but to benefit all sides. I don't know whether it's possible at all, but at least some compromise.
I have suggested there's this guy named Matt Ehret. He writes a lot of really great stuff. He's extremely prolific. Anything that Matt has written should be sent to Kellogg and let him figure this out. I mean, this is the same Kellogg now who seems to think, and Trump seems to think this too, that if we can somehow drive the price of oil down, get the Saudis to flood the world market with cheap oil, that somehow will drag the Russians down. Actually, this leads me to what I think is a question for Ed. What are the Russians thinking? I mean, they must be puzzled over all of this and what to expect from this administration. But I think what lurks behind that, I mean, this is what I referred to in my interview with Rachel, and also the piece we were commenting on that was on the Ron Paul site last year, is that the whole Russian approach to this war seems to have been what I call pedagogical. In other words, the idea, we'll send a force in, and now they'll talk. Oh, well, they won't talk now. Well, we'll keep grinding away, and we'll fling a few Oreshniks in there. Have you gotten the message yet? No, they haven't got the message yet. So they seem to be constantly trying to position themselves for some deal, some diplomatic settlement with the West. And it seems that they're going out of their way to avoid ending this war through a military fait accompli. Am I wrong in my understanding of that, or am I reading the tea leaves correctly, that at some point the Russians hope against hope that somebody somewhere will be reasonable they can talk to and make a deal with, even though every deal they'd made with us in the last 30 years has not been honored by their Western partners, as they insist on calling them. What's the thinking from your perspective, Ed?
Well, of course, I can speak for Russians. I can give you only my opinion. I think that they have complete, total trust in Putin. They think that he is the one who knows real picture, his all information, and no, they trust him. His popularity is extremely strong, despite of heavy losses. Russia is losing a lot of people, and everyone really is wondering the same as you, why Russia is not responded as promised to all those attacks from the British and American missiles. I think that probably Putin doesn't want to disrupt, because this is what Zelensky wants. Zelensky wants to provoke Russia, so Russia responds strongly against some of those countries who deliver those missiles. And then it will be a local Pearl Harbor event, moment. Every time they say we want to meet, so I think all their hope is in this meeting. That apparently at this meeting, when they look eye to eye, face to face, maybe, and they definitely are sympathetic to each other, and they can find some compromise. So at this point, Russians just have to keep their feelings under control, not to go like crazy. And although some people in the media definitely demand a strong response. The sooner this meeting takes place, the better, because otherwise, every day it's one step more towards Pearl Harbor, or sort of Pearl Harbor. And we'll know tomorrow what American nuclear scientists think about it with their doomsday scenario time, whether they move errors closer to midnight or keep it in the same place. I don't know.
Well, again, this is what puzzles me a bit, because, obviously, if the Western leadership wants to commit worldwide suicide, kill everybody by the use of nuclear weapons, they can do that. But if it's a conventional confrontation, NATO cannot win that confrontation. And many people from like Colonel McGregor and Andrei Martyanov and many others have pointed out, just on military terms, NATO is not prepared to fight this war. So I don't know why the Russians are more afraid of a Pearl Harbor confrontation than their Western partners are. And what I really don't understand is why they are still taking this incremental approach to the war. I mean, why is Zelensky and the presidential administration in Kiev still in existence? Why is the Rada still in existence? Why is the SBU still in existence? Why are the bridges still over the Dnieper so they can supply their forces in the east? And meanwhile, Russia is incrementally killing off the entire generation, or maybe two generations, of Ukrainian manpower, which is actually, in some ways, a far more heartless way to go around about this, rather than destroying the Ukrainian state ability to conduct the war. I don't understand, unless they're so sold on the notion that somebody's going to come and agree with them. And I'll tell you honestly, whatever Trump's preferences may be, I believe that anything that is agreed to with Washington, between Washington and Moscow, that is less than a total military victory by Moscow, will not be honored by the West. Even if Trump wants to honor it, his administration will not allow it to be honored, and his successors certainly will not honor it.
I think just before I will turn it to Matt, I think that the reason why is still kind of keep their feelings under control is that Russia is advancing. You see, if Russia would probably stop this advance or even fall back, then of course maybe reaction will be stronger. But as long as Russia advances, every day advances, and on both and on Ukrainian territory and on Russian territory. So this gives some kind of satisfaction, and allowing Putin to continue this in the hope that this summit will be sooner than later. But all of us observers, we can only hope that this indeed will be sooner than later.
I would,
Matt.
yeah, I would just throw out a couple of points and then get Jim's final assessment on a thought I have, but which is number one, at his World Economic Forum, very short but concise address, Trump did make an allusion towards the need for a nuclear disarmament, which was a sort of replay of some efforts that we saw that he made in 2019, 2020 that didn't go anywhere. But the I think orientation is a good one as a sentiment. If you had the ear of Trump, if you were able to actually be in the same room with Trump, Tulsi, and a couple of other people, what would you say that they should think about now going into the coming weeks of battle and months of battle going forward, knowing that there's so many vipers out to sabotage any types of danger of peace through collaboration? What sort of advice would you give?
Um, I would say to him very bluntly, if your goal is to make America great again, America cannot be great and the American empire still survive. You have to liquidate our global empire and concentrate on building our country, our infrastructure. I mean, that's something he promised in his first term. Supposedly, Steve Bannon told him that your first bill out of the box should be an infrastructure bill. And instead, they went with a tax bill, which you would get from any Republican administration. We should be building our country back. We should be looking at, where's our Belt and Road Initiative through the Western Hemisphere? Why aren't we building stuff like they're building in Eurasia? That's where your focus needs to be. But you cannot do that if you insist that we have to call the shots in the whole rest of the world. We have to be willing to say to those other regions, the Europe and Middle East and so forth, not our business. We're walking away. You guys take care of it. Can he bring himself to do that? I don't know that he can. He still seems to think that America is in command of all which she surveys. We can build up America even better by trying to boss the rest of the world around. If there's a BRICS currency, we're going to put 100% tariffs on them and save the dollar and this and that. I think, unfortunately, if he keeps going down this road, aside from whatever he does about Ukraine or Iran or Taiwan or whatever, if he doesn't manage to blow up the world, he's going to end up being kind of like an American Gorbachev by trying to save not only a system that's on the edge of collapse domestically, he's going to try to save a global ideological system that simply cannot be saved. And I don't know if he realizes that. Yeah, I think that's the fundamental decision he needs to make, and I don't think anybody's going to put it to him that way.
Okay, well, Jim, this is very informative. Thank you so much for your time. And Matt, anything that you want to finish with?
No, that was perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. We need that sort of voice of common sense and reason with a constructive outlook towards navigating through this minefield. So, Jim, you hit it out of the park. Thank you very much for sharing your wisdom, your insights, and I look forward to future conversations.
I know that I'm going to pledge it. I will, of course, quote Jim in my next article about homework for Keith Kellogg. I will quote you on exactly what you just said.
That's right. Read Matt Ehret.
Listen to Jim Jatras and Ed. All right, guys. This is great.
Thank you, guys.